Yeah, why pen testing is the last thing you should do. Or alternatively, if you like subtitles, how to use a superficial, controversial sounding title as clickbait. First thing, and hopefully this will work because this is experimental and the first time I've tried something like this in a presentation. If you trust me, you can try the QR code there. Otherwise, if you go to that link, there should be a nice interactive thing there which will let you do any questions you might have, so you can throw them in and I may or may not look at them and answer them at the end, but you can just put them down as we go. But more importantly, it will let you answer the pub quiz polls. So I'll give you a moment to do that. I'm not sure if anyone can hear me. This is a very one-way thing.
Sorry, you muted the microphone as well so you can hear us. But yeah, we can hear you fine.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, if I can keep hearing you, that would be great.
Yes, too.
So I think that's enough time for people to have jumped on to the QR code if they're going to. Like I said, I hope this works. So first thing, if my computer doesn't lock up, there we go. Wonderful. Right, pub quiz question number 1. What is pen testing? So you've got writing a lot of reports to test burrows. You have using attacker-like techniques and tools to breach a target system, or running Nessus and filing the logos off the report. Okay, so with one answer, we've got 100% on attacker-like techniques and tools. Three answers. That'll do. That's representative of the audience. Yeah, so everyone should know what pen testing is. It's you acting like an attacker, try and breach a target system. It does also involve writing a lot of reports, but that's usually on a computer, so you're not testing burrows. There's a lot of pen testing out there which is running Nessus or running a vulnerability scanner and filing the logos off. That is distressingly common. And if you've got any experience in security and get one of those reports, it's immediately obvious. And that's when you add that company to your list of never work with again. Next question. What's the actual aim of pen testing? What's the goal of it? Are we looking to meet compliance requirements? Are we looking to satisfy customer demands, find security flaws in the system, improve the security of the system? Which of these is ultimately the main aim of penetration testing? Not sure if that one's working, so I'll carry on for now. And is a vulnerability scan bad pen testing? Yes, no, or it's more complicated than that. Now, this one I want to go into for quite a bit because, yes, a vulnerability scan can be counted as lazy pen testing. It can be counted as trying to rip a customer off because you're not actually doing the work they're paying for. But if a company, if an organization hasn't got any vulnerability management in place, then there's no point doing a pen test. You will just be wasting your time because you're going to find less that way. You're actually doing better for them by running a vulnerability scan. They'd be better to do that themselves, but if they want to give you $1,500 a day to do it for them, then okay, I can see why you might go down that route. And finally, for the questions at least, when should you pen test? So lots of the time you'll get annually. Sometimes you might get monthly if somewhere's particularly ambitious. After significant changes, though I've never found anywhere that can tell me what a significant change is, or when you need to, which again is really hard to define. And yeah, annually is the most common. Whether that's right or not depends on what you're trying to do. So, moving on from the experimental pub quiz. So we're going on a journey, short journey, this one, of development and penetration testing and unicorns and clouds and magic. And this is one that I have seen in more than enough organizations. I would say the majority of organizations I've ever seen or worked with have a very similar journey to this. The approach we're using for development doesn't matter. Whether it's DevSecOps and we're taking that approach, whether we're using Agile, whether we're building Scrum, whether we're using extreme programming, which I didn't know existed, but apparently that's an actual formal approach to programming. I don't know what it involves. I don't want to. Whether we're using Spiral, which makes me think of Spirals of Doom, which is probably quite accurate, Lean, Waterfall, whatever you might want to use. That doesn't matter for this journey because we're going nice and broad and generic. And what we do is we start out with an idea. Brilliant. We've got an idea for a project. We write it down. We take it to a pitch meeting. We pitch it. We get budget. We get resource, whatever it might be, however that works internally for the organization. That's what we start with, just an idea. Then we design and build it. Brilliant. Don't care if it's agile, and we do that iteratively over 2 weeks, iterations of stress and anguish and coffee, or waterfall, and we do it over 18 months of stress and anguish and coffee. However we do it, we design it, then we build it, and then we pen test it to make sure it's secure. Let's give the pen testers 5 days to be generous. It seems to be about an average amount for a pen test. They run a vulnerability scan. They run their automated tooling. If they have time, they might do some manual exploration. Good, okay. They write the report. That's at least a day or 2 of their time. But going through the findings from that vulnerability scan and that automated tooling is going to eat up most of the time they would otherwise use for manual exploration. So, how much value has pen testing added here if they find vulnerabilities with the scan, with the automated tools, manual exploration, or they find nothing? And the answer is odd, because really they are adding the most value at this point by doing the scan and using the automated tools, because that's going to discover the most flaws in our software. That's going to find the most things we can fix and cause the biggest improvement to security, which is a complete waste of a pen testing budget and of a pen testing company and of pen testing skills. So what's happening here is you are pen testing too early. It's the first thing you're doing for security. Not accusing any of you of doing that, but there's plenty of companies who do. If pen testing is the first and only thing you are doing for security, you are wasting huge amounts of resources. So let's go with a slightly different approach. And this one is a magical journey of self-discovery, security tools, imagination, unicorns, and software development. I've seen this actually achieved fully, I would say, about 3 times in 20 years. But when it has been, it's incredibly effective. So this time, we start with an idea, but we do a bit more than that. We define the security requirements, because we can do that with just an idea. Yes, they'll be high level, but we can still define them. We do a bit of high-level threat modeling. We consider what the threats might be. We create our threat profiles. We stick them up on the wall for the rest of the project. We run a quick risk assessment, looking at the basic functionality that we'll need for this idea to work and what risks that raises. And throughout all of this, and beforehand and after and all the time, we train our project teams on security appropriate to their role. So project managers get an idea of higher level security, developers will be focused more on technical security and secure coding, but everyone is constantly going through that awareness and that training. Then we design it, and we do more thorough threat modeling. So we start applying whatever our threat modeling methodology might be, whether it's Stride, whether it's Pasta, whether it's Octave, whether it's something else that we built entirely in-house, which is the right way to do threat modeling. And we select third-party components from our catalog where we know that they are reasonably secure, and we know we've got the infrastructure in place to maintain them, and we've got the intelligence in place to pick up any alerts about security that come out for them. And we define the security metrics we'll be using for the project because we're designing it. We can define them at this point. We know the sort of measures that we want to use. And we decide on the approved tools. Are we going to use Visual Studio? Are we going to use Notepad? Doesn't matter, but it will be one set of tools that we are using, that every developer is using to build this. They will be approved, they will be secure, they will be able to do what the developers want. There's an important caveat here that if there is no suitable approved tool, you find one and you add it to the list, and that needs to be fast and easy. And then we build it. And as we're building it, we're constantly running static code analysis, and we're constantly running dynamic analysis every time it's built. Because we've got security requirements defined early, and because we've been using threat modeling rather than just saying, oh, security is non-functional, we can't test for it. Instead, we have functional unit tests for security. Those will be misuse cases or failure cases, and we're testing to see whether fuzzing will overload an input, or whether it's possible to inject into something, or whether it's possible to elevate privileges. But we're testing for failure, and we're making security a functional test. We've got vulnerability management in place. We're doing scanning. We're looking at all of those third-party components and constantly making sure they're updated. And we're still doing security training and regular reviews throughout the project. And then we pen test to make sure it's secure. But the difference here is we give the pen testers all of our vulnerability reports, every single one, or certainly the latest ones, and our SAST and DAST results, and all of the documentation that we have of the system. And we tell them, we know these vulnerabilities exist. We should have resolved them, but we know they exist at the moment, and we're working on them. So we don't want you finding those. And we don't want you finding anything that our SAST and DAST picked up because you know it's there. Sure, go do proof of concept on it just to confirm it for us, but we don't want you exploring for them. What we want you to do is what's valuable, what you're good at. Try to find the holes in the system. And at this point, if they find vulnerabilities with a scan, well, that's worthless. They've just wasted their time and ours because we gave them the scan. And if they find it with automated tools, again, largely worthless. We've been running those tools ourselves. If they find vulnerabilities and attack paths with manual exploration and can build up attacker scenarios, that's incredibly useful. We now know what's plausible. We now know what's good to solve or bad if we don't solve. And if they find nothing, we can be more confident than we could have been in the first one if they find nothing, because we know we've done a lot of work around the security. So this all ties into an idea of keystones and capstones, which is something to do with architecture or civil engineering, whatever you want to call it. And there's a difference between these two approaches. So a keystone is something in an arch, usually the top stone of the arch, the last stone placed, and then you remove the bracing, and the whole thing falls apart without that keystone. If you remove the keystone from a bridge, it collapses. If you remove it from an arch, it collapses. And what's happening a lot of the time is that pen testing is being used as a keystone, which means if it fails, if it's weak, your security is non-existent. Whereas what we should be doing is looking at the capstone option, where we're placing it to signify that we've completed it. Not entirely decorative. Capstones are designed to protect walls and softer materials below, but it's not a supporting component. It's not critical. If you remove it, the whole thing doesn't crumble. It becomes more vulnerable, but it doesn't collapse. Now, in theory, this should let you ask questions, or I'm sure you can shout from the audience. I don't know how they're handling things there today, but any questions, or what questions do you have? Other than why is my battery on my laptop dying?
Do we have questions? It would appear we do not have any questions.
Okay. Right. Well, in that case, I will leave you with the obligatory self-referential LinkedIn, self-Twitter quote post thing. saying pen testing should be a capstone of security, not the keystone. If you look for it, by the way, this post doesn't exist. I'm just very good at forging these things. I couldn't bring myself to do an actual one just for this. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, James.